I rescued the wolf from the trap in the morning, Nine. The forest was quiet, save for the soft rustle of leaves under the early morning breeze. Mist curled around the trees, thick and cold, hiding shadows that seemed almost alive. Alara moved carefully along the narrow path, her boots leaving faint prints in the damp earth. She had come here before, drawn by a curiosity she could not explain, a pull toward the heart of the woods where whispers of magic lingered. She paused when a sharp, anguished howl split the silence. It was not the cry of a regular animal. There was fear, pain, and something deeper, almost human, in its tone. Without thinking, she ran toward the sound, pushing past thick branches and undergrowth, until she saw it. A wolf, caught in a cruel iron trap, struggled violently, its fur matted with mud and blood. Its eyes, golden and wild, met hers for a heartbeat that felt endless. The animal's breathing was ragged, its body trembling with both fear and pain. "Alara," she whispered to herself, her name tasting strange on her lips in the cold air. But she could not leave it there. Kneeling beside the wolf, she examined the trap. It was old, heavy, and rusted, with sharp teeth that had bitten into the wolf's leg. Her hands shook as she worked to free it, the metal cold and unforgiving against her palms. The wolf growled softly, not out of anger, but from a mixture of pain and confusion. She spoke in calm tones, soothing it, as if her voice alone could steady its frantic heart. After what felt like an eternity, the trap released with a sharp click. The wolf staggered to its feet, limping slightly, but it did not run. Instead, it lingered near her, watching her with those golden eyes that seemed to shine with gratitude, and something else, something she could not name. "You're free now," she said, brushing her hair from her face. The wolf's ears twitched. Then, almost reverently, it bowed its head to her and disappeared into the mist, moving silently between the trees like a shadow. Alara's heart was still racing. She had saved countless creatures in her life, but this one felt different. There was a sense of destiny in the way its eyes had locked with hers, a spark that refused to fade even as it vanished. That night, she could not sleep. She kept thinking of the wolf, of the strange energy that had pulsed from it, as if it carried the weight of centuries. Around midnight, a soft tapping at her window startled her. When she looked, she gasped. Standing outside was not a wolf, but a man. Tall, lean, and wild-looking, with hair dark as the forest itself. His eyes were golden, glowing faintly in the moonlight, and there was a strange tension in the way he moved. He did not speak, but she felt his presence deep in her chest, as though he carried the cold wind and the forest's whispers inside him. "Alara," he said finally, his voice low and rough, yet strangely melodic. "You freed me. What are you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Fear prickled at her spine, but it was mixed with curiosity and something warmer, something dangerous in its intensity. "I am Varen," he said. I was trapped, not by chains, but by a curse. And now, because of you, I am awake."
Alara stepped back instinctively, her heart racing.
"A curse? What kind of curse?" Bayron's gaze softened for a moment. But there was sadness buried deep within it. A curse placed long ago by a queen who feared what I could become. I was a man once, a prince. Now, I am something else, something the night did not intend to forgive. She swallowed hard. The air seemed to thicken, the shadows pressing closer around the window. "Why are you here?" "To thank you, and to warn you," he said. "Freeing me was not without consequence. Others, darker than I, will come for me. For both of us." Alara felt a chill. "Others? What do you mean?" Varen's eyes flicked toward the forest. "For centuries I was bound to it. I could not move freely, and neither could the shadows that hunted me. Now that balance has shifted. They will sense my freedom, and they will want to reclaim it." For a long moment, Silence hung between them, broken only by the faint wind rustling the leaves outside. Despite the danger, she felt drawn to him, not just to his presence, but to the tragedy she saw in his eyes, the loneliness that mirrored her own in ways she had never admitted. "You're not like any man I've ever met," she said softly. "And you are not like any woman I have ever known," he replied, a hint of a smile brushing his lips, though it did not reach the sorrow in his eyes. Days passed, though it was hard to tell with the heavy fog in the shadowed forest. Veyron appeared and disappeared like the wind, sometimes visible only at the edges of her vision, watching her silently. Slowly, Alara began to understand that the wolf she had freed carried not just a curse, but a story that belonged as much to her now as to him. One evening, as the sun bled red through the trees, they sat together by the edge of a small stream. Veyron's voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "I remember the man I was," he said, staring at the reflection of the trees in the water. "I remember the crown I could have worn, the life that was stolen from me, and the betrayal that led to this form. I do not know if I deserve freedom, or even your kindness." Elora reached out, her hand brushing his. "You were trapped, and I freed you." "That's enough. It does not matter what came before. What matters is now." For a brief moment he looked human again, his golden eyes softening. Then a shadow passed over his features, and he drew back. "You do not understand," he murmured. "There are powers in this forest older than kings, older than men. They will not forgive my escape, and if they come for me, I cannot promise your safety." "Then we face them together," she said firmly, though a tremor ran through her voice. She did not know why she spoke these words, why she trusted him so completely, but something deep inside her insisted it was right. Night fell, thick and suffocating, and the forest seemed alive with watching eyes. Elara could hear the distant howl of wolves, the whisper of trees bending unnaturally, as though the forest itself was breathing. Veyron stood at the edge of the trees, the moonlight glinting on his dark hair, his figure both beautiful and terrifying. Suddenly, the wind shifted, cold and sharp, carrying a voice that made Alara's blood run cold.
"You have freed him, but not from them," it hissed, soft and cruel as though the forest itself had spoken.
Shadows flickered across the trees, moving too quickly to be animals, too fluid to be human. Veyron's body tensed, and his eyes narrowed. "They are close," he said, his voice barely audible. "They know I am awake. And now they will come for us both." Elora's grip on the small knife at her side tightened. Fear and resolve battled within her, a storm she had never felt before, yet beneath it, a strange thrill ran through her. A sense that her life had changed forever, that she had crossed into a world where danger and wonder walked side by side. The wolf she had freed, the man she now faced, and the shadows that watched from beyond the mist. Everything was different now. Nothing could ever be the same. And then, just as the first pale light of morning began to seep through the fog, a low, echoing growl rolled through the forest, deep and inhuman. Veyron's golden eyes blazed with a feral light. "They are here," he whispered, "and there is no turning back." Elara felt her pulse race, the forest holding its breath around them. Somewhere in the shifting mist, a figure moved, silent and patient, waiting for the perfect moment. The air seemed charged with promise and peril. She looked at Veyron, at the man and the wolf entwined in one, and knew that her choice, to help him, to trust him, to face whatever came next, would define not just her life, but the fate of the forest itself. The howl came again, louder this time, echoing from every shadowed corner, and Elara realized, with a chill in her bones and a strange thrill in her heart, that this was only the beginning. The forest had grown darker, though the sun still struggled to rise. Mist clung to the trees like a living thing, curling around branches and roots, whispering secrets only the wind could carry. Alara moved carefully beside Veyron, her hand brushing against his without realizing it. He walked with a silent grace, each step deliberate, his golden eyes scanning the shadows as though he could see things she could not. "We must move quickly," Veyron said softly, his voice barely above the rustle of leaves. "The forest will not hide us for long. Others are already sensing my freedom." Alara nodded, her pulse racing. The first part of fear had passed. Now it had been replaced by determination. She had freed him. She could not turn back. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly, though she tried to hide it. "To the kingdom," Veyron said, his gaze distant. "It is not a kingdom as you would imagine. Most of it is in ruins, haunted by shadows and memories. But there, perhaps, we can find the truth, and a way to break the curse." Alara shivered at the thought. A cursed kingdom, shadows that lived beyond death, and a man who was both wolf and human. Yet something in her stirred, a courage she did not know she possessed. The journey was long. The forest seemed endless, winding and twisting, as though it were testing them at every turn. Strange creatures slipped past the edges of their vision, leaving fleeting shadows and whispered growls. Veyron's hand sometimes brushed hers as they moved, almost accidentally, yet each time a spark ran through her like lightning. One evening, as the sky darkened to a bruised purple, they reached the edge of the mountains. Beyond the craggy peaks lay the ruins of the kingdom. Towers, long collapsed, reached toward the sky like broken fingers, and the walls were cracked with age and magic. Vines and moss crept over every surface, covering the stone in green and gray. "This is it," Veyron said, his voice quiet. "Once this was a place of light and laughter. Now it is only shadows and memory." Alara stepped forward cautiously, her eyes taking in the remnants of what had once been magnificent halls and gardens. The wind carried a chill that felt unnatural, pressing against her skin like invisible fingers. She realized that the kingdom itself seemed alive, aware of their presence, watching. Veyron moved ahead, his form tall and commanding despite the haunted look in his eyes. "I must show you something," he said, leading her to a central courtyard. At its center was a fountain, cracked and dry. Around it, shadows swirled like smoke, curling and twisting in patterns that made her stomach turn. "They are here," he murmured. "The remnants of the queen's power. Her curse lingers, even after all this time, and it waits for me, for you, for anyone who dares to step inside these walls." Alara swallowed hard. "I don't understand. What does this mean for us?" Veyron looked at her, his expression both solemn and strangely tender. "It means danger, it means truth, and it means that to break the curse, we must face the darkest parts of ourselves and each other." For a moment, she felt fear grip her like ice, but then, looking into his golden eyes, she saw the vulnerability beneath the feral edge, the man beneath the wolf, and she realized that whatever came next, she would not face it alone. They explored the ruins carefully, moving through broken halls and overgrown courtyards. Shadows danced at the corners of their vision, whispering unintelligible words, and sometimes the ground seemed to shiver beneath their feet. Veyron paused in front of a massive, broken door carved with symbols she could not read. "This is where the heart of the kingdom still beats," he said. "Here we may find the answers we seek. But beware, the shadows test more than your courage. They test your very soul." Alara stepped forward, her hand brushing against his. "Then we face them together," she said, her voice firm. Each word felt heavier than air, binding her to him in ways she could not explain. Inside, the hall was dark and oppressive. Moonlight filtered through shattered windows, casting long streaks of silver on the stone floor. Shadows moved unnaturally, shifting like smoke, whispering secrets and regrets. Veyron's presence beside her was steadying, yet she could feel the pull of the darkness tugging at her thoughts, stirring doubts and fears she had never acknowledged. As they moved deeper, Veyron began to speak of his past. "I was a prince once," he said, his voice soft, almost painful. "I was proud, reckless, and blind.
I made mistakes, choices that cost lives.
The queen, she cursed me for them, not out of mercy, but fear. She feared what I could become." Elara listened quietly, her heart aching for the weight he carried. Do you regret it?" she asked gently. He looked at her, eyes golden and haunted. "I regret what I have lost, what I have caused, but regret does not undo the past. It only teaches us if we are willing to learn." Their journey through the halls grew more dangerous. Shadows coalesced into forms, whispering threats and twisting illusions. At one point, Veyron froze, his hand gripping her arm. A shadow moved across the wall, a tall figure with the queen's presence in every motion, though she was long gone. "They are testing us," he whispered. "They know my weakness. They seek to use it against me." Elara stepped forward, drawing on a strength she did not know she had.
"Then let them try," she said.
"We will not falter." They pressed on, facing more illusions, visions of betrayal, of lost friends, of lives that had been twisted by greed and fear. Each time Veyron struggled to remain in control, the wolf's instincts clashing with his human mind. Elara held his hand, spoke to him, and reminded him of who he was, reminding him that he was more than the curse, more than the shadows. By the time they reached the central tower, night had fully fallen. The view from the top revealed the ruined kingdom stretching endlessly beneath them, a landscape of sorrow and beauty intertwined. Moonlight touched the broken walls, casting them in a silver glow that made the shadows even darker. Veyron's gaze was distant, his jaw tight. "We are close," he said. "The answers, the key, it is here. But the queen's will lingers, and her test is not yet done." Elara shivered, though it was not from the cold. She felt the pull of the darkness, the weight of the curse, and the fragile thread of connection that had formed between them. She realized that this journey was changing her, not just Veyron. She had discovered courage she did not know she possessed, a resilience born from care and trust. And then they found it, a letter, aged and brittle, resting on a pedestal in the heart of the tower. The script was elegant, deliberate, and cruel. "He is not yours to save. The night answers only to me. One day the choice will come, and you will wish you had never touched him." Elara felt her stomach twist. Veyron's eyes darkened, his golden gaze sharp and fierce. "She knows," he whispered. "She knows I am free. She knows you are here." And now she will not wait. A cold wind swept through the tower, rattling the broken windows and carrying a low, melodic laugh that seemed to echo from every corner. Shadows moved faster now, circling them, twisting into shapes that were impossible to hold in memory. Elara took a deep breath, gripping Veyron's hand tightly. "Then we face her," she said, her voice firm, though her heart raced. Veyron looked at her, awe, and something deeper shining in his golden eyes. "Together," he agreed. The wind rose, stronger now, carrying whispers of danger, warning, and power. And as they prepared to descend further into the heart of the kingdom, a figure emerged from the shadows, a shape that was both beautiful and terrifying. With eyes that gleamed like moonlight on steel. "Welcome, Veyron," the voice said, soft yet commanding. carrying the weight of centuries. And you, little one who dares to follow him, do you know what you have brought upon yourself? Elara felt her pulse quicken. She glanced at Veyron, who stood tall despite the tension, his hand brushing hers once again. She realized that whatever came next would test not only their strength, but their trust, their hearts, and the bond forming between them. The shadows shifted around them, and the ruined kingdom seemed to hold its breath, waiting for what would come next. Elara knew one thing with certainty. The journey had only begun. And in the deepest corners of the tower, the queen's power stirred once more, hungry, patient, and unyielding. The tower's interior grew colder as Elara and Veyron descended deeper, steps echoing in the hollow stone halls. The shadows that clung to the walls seemed to ripple, stretching long fingers toward them with every flicker of moonlight. Veyron's golden eyes were sharp, scanning each corner, each shifting shade. He moved like a hunter and a guardian at once, protective yet aware of the danger lurking beyond sight. "The heart of the labyrinth is below," Veyron said softly, his voice echoing in the empty stairwell. "It is where the queen's magic still pulses strongest. There we will face the trials, the parts of ourselves we have hidden or feared. Only by facing them can the curse be broken." Elara nodded, though her stomach twisted. She had freed him from the trap, but this, the trials, felt like a challenge that might consume them both. She clenched her hands, finding courage in the warmth of Veyron's presence beside her. The entrance to the labyrinth was a massive archway, carved with strange symbols. Shadows pooled at the edges, twisting unnaturally. As they stepped forward, the archway seemed to breathe, and the darkness swallowed them whole. Inside, the labyrinth was alive. The walls shifted subtly as they moved, creating new corridors and closing old ones. Mist swirled along the floor, thick and heavy, and whispers echoed from all directions. At first, the whispers were unintelligible, soft like the wind. Then they grew clearer, echoing their fears and doubts. "Do not speak to them," Veyron warned. "The shadows feed on hesitation and fear. They will try to twist your mind, make you doubt yourself, and me." Elara swallowed hard and followed closely. Each step made her heart pound, not only from fear but from the strange thrill that came with walking beside Veyron through danger. His presence was steadying, yet the shadows seemed to reach between them, testing their connection. They came to a wide chamber, its ceiling lost in darkness. At the center, a pool of black water reflected not their faces, but their deepest fears. Elara approached cautiously, her reflection twisting into shapes of loneliness and despair. She saw herself surrounded by emptiness, her courage failing, her hands unable to save anyone. Not Veyron, not herself. "Face it," Veyron urged softly, stepping beside her. "Do not turn away. The shadows feed on doubt. The moment you do, they will claim you." Elara took a deep breath. Her reflection blurred, but she forced her gaze steady. "I will not run," she said aloud. Her voice echoed across the chamber, strong despite the tremor beneath it. "I will face this, because I choose to stand, and because I choose to help him." Veyron's gaze softened as he watched her. "You are stronger than you know," he said quietly, almost a whisper. Then he stepped into the reflection himself. His image wavered, revealing the wolf inside him. The golden eyes sharper, the fur rippling across his human form. Then the wolf's eyes glowed with anger and fear, showing centuries of isolation and rage. Veyron's jaw clenched, a low growl escaping him, though his human form remained. "Elara," he said, voice tight. I do not know if I can control it this time." The wolf, the rage, it wants to break free. You will not lose yourself, she said, placing her hand over his. I trust you. I believe in you. For a heartbeat, he looked at her, the wolf within him stirring, the battle inside raging. Then he closed his eyes and drew a deep breath. The wolf's growl faded to a low rumble, and his human form steadied. Thank you, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. I have not felt trust like this in centuries. The chamber shifted, the pool rippling, and a new path opened before them. They moved forward, navigating twisting corridors where walls whispered secrets of betrayal and loss. Shadows formed figures, friends they had never met, loved ones lost, visions of failure. But each time Veyron and Alara held fast to each other, their bond grounding them. At one point, the labyrinth shifted, and Alara found herself alone in a narrow hall. The air grew colder, and the walls shimmered with silver light. In front of her appeared a vision of her own past, a memory of loneliness and fear, of moments when she had felt powerless.
You are alone, a whisper hissed from the walls.
You cannot save him. You cannot save yourself. You will fail. Alara's chest tightened, but she forced herself to breathe. I am not alone, she said aloud, her voice growing stronger. I have him, and together we are stronger than you. The silver light shivered, then dissolved, and the hall opened to a wider chamber where Veyron waited. Relief and joy surged through her, and she ran to his side. You are... he began. But the shadows shifted again, forming the shape of a woman cloaked in darkness, her eyes gleaming like polished obsidian. I'm... Selena, the figure said. Her voice was soft, melodic, yet edged with power and cruelty. And you, Veyron, still cling to life. Still defy the night that binds you. Veyron squared his shoulders. I am no longer yours to control, he said firmly. I am free. Selene's laugh was low and musical, echoing through the chamber. Free? Do you think freedom can undo centuries of curse and blood? Do you think a girl, so tender, so weak, can stand against what I have created? I am not weak, she said firmly, and together we will face you. Selene's eyes narrowed, and the shadows surged around them, swirling faster, forming shapes of wolves, twisted figures, and monstrous creatures. The chamber trembled as the darkness pressed in. Veyron placed himself in front of Alara, his stance protective, yet there was fear in his eyes. The wolf within him stirred, testing the edges of control. Alara, but stay close. Trust me. Do not falter. Alara nodded, gripping his hand. I will not. I trust you. The shadows lunged forward, and Veyron's golden eyes glowed bright. With a low, guttural sound, he stepped into the middle of the chamber. The wolf within him roared silently, controlled but fierce, as if warning the darkness to stay back. Alara felt the air crackle with energy. Her heart raced, and for the first time, she realized the depth of their connection, how their courage and trust strengthened each other, and how the bond they shared could withstand even the darkest magic. The shadows recoiled slightly, then shifted again, forming a maze of illusions that threatened to separate them. Alara's pulse quickened. She could feel the pull of doubt, the lure of fear. But she forced herself to keep moving, following Veyron through corridors that twisted reality. In the deepest part of the labyrinth, they came to a mirror, its surface dark and rippling. Their reflections stared back, showing both the wolf and the man side by side. Veyron's golden eyes glimmered with fear and hope, Alara's own reflection showing strength she did not yet fully understand. The choice comes, Selene's voice whispered from everywhere and nowhere. One of you must remain in shadow, or both will fall. Veyron's hands gripped hers tightly. No, we face this together, he said, his voice steady, though his heart raced with the tension of centuries of curse and rage. Ilara nodded. "Together," she echoed, "always together." The mirror began to glow, silver and black light swirling in impossible patterns. Shadows stretched toward them, the air thick with power and the weight of centuries. Ilara and Veyron stood side by side, facing the trials, knowing that whatever happened next would decide their fates, and perhaps the fate of the entire kingdom. A cold wind swept through the labyrinth, carrying the echoes of the queen's laughter and the growls of wolves. Long dead, the maze shifted again, as though alive, and the mirror's surface shimmered, showing the choices they must make. Veyron's voice was low but fierce. "No matter what comes, do not let go of me. Do not let the shadows win." "I will not," she said. "I will fight. For you. For us." The labyrinth seemed to pause, as if holding its breath, and for the first time, Ilara felt the full weight of their journey. The danger, the magic, the curse, and the love growing between them. It was a bond forged in shadow, tempered by courage and strengthened by trust. And then, in the center of the mirror, a new figure appeared. Selene herself, beautiful, cruel, and impossible to ignore. Her eyes glimmered with the promise of power and pain. "You are close," she whispered, her voice like silk over steel. "But the final choice will come soon, and the night will remember everything." Ilara and Veyron exchanged a glance, unspoken understanding passing between them. Whatever the labyrinth demanded, whatever shadow or fear awaited, they would face it together. And as the mirror pulsed with light and darkness, the labyrinth itself seemed to shift, preparing for the ultimate trial. The labyrinth trembled around them, walls twisting and shivering with light and shadow. Selene's presence pulsed like a heartbeat, each beat sending waves of power that made the air shimmer and the ground quake. Ilara's grip on Veyron's hand tightened. She could feel his tension, the struggle inside him as the wolf and the man battled for control. "You are brave," Selene's voice echoed, soft and cruel, yet melodic. "But bravery alone cannot undo what I have made. One of you must remain in shadow, or both will fall." Veyron's golden eyes flared, a mixture of determination and the fierce glimmer of the wolf within. "I will not let you harm her," he said, voice low but unshakable. "I will face whatever comes, and I will not fall alone." Ilara swallowed, her chest tight. She had followed him through fear and shadow, through illusions that threatened to drown their courage. Now, standing on the edge of everything, she felt the weight of destiny pressing down. "We face this together," she said firmly. "Whatever comes, we stand side by side." Selene's laugh rippled through the chamber, soft as silk, sharp as ice. "Side by side." How touching. But love cannot save you from the night. It cannot save him from himself. The mirror at the center of the labyrinth began to glow, silver and black light swirling across its surface. In its depths, reflections of their fears and regrets twisted and danced. Visions of failure, betrayal, and endless loss. The shadows of wolves lunged from the glass, growling and snapping, their eyes gleaming with hunger and malice. Veyron stepped forward, placing himself protectively in front of Ilara. "Do not let them control you," he said. His voice was firm, but she could hear the strain beneath it. The wolf stirred inside him, claws of instinct scraping at the edges of his human form. "Stay with me. Trust me." Ilara nodded, her hand gripping his. "I trust you, always." The shadows surged, forming a wall of darkness between them and the mirror. But as they pressed forward, Veyron's golden eyes flared with light, and he let out a low growl that seemed to shake the very air. The wolf within him did not take over, but lent strength, wild, raw, yet controlled. Ilara felt it, a pulse of energy and determination that surged through both of them. She realized then that the bond they had forged, through fear, through trials, through trust, was stronger than any curse or shadow. Celine's form appeared in the mirror, beautiful, cruel, and impossibly powerful. You dare defy me? You dare stand in the heart of my labyrinth and claim the courage of love? Viren's hand brushed hers, warm and steady. We do not claim courage. We are it. Together. The shadows screamed, curling into monstrous shapes, wolves with eyes like fire, figures twisted by centuries of grief. But Alara and Veyran advanced step by step, hand in hand, until they stood before the mirror itself. Choose, Celine's voice hissed. One of you must remain in shadow. One of you must fall. Viren's golden eyes met hers. No. We choose together. Whatever comes, we do it as one. Alara drew in a deep breath. She could feel the labyrinth's power, the pull of darkness, the weight of centuries pressing on her. She reached into herself, finding the courage that had grown from every trial, every fear faced, every moment of trust. We will not be divided. Not by curse, not by shadow, not by fear. The mirror trembled, and for a moment it seemed as though the shadows would swallow them. But Veyran stepped forward, his wolf instincts and human heart in perfect harmony. He roared, not a sound of rage, but of defiance. Light flared from his eyes, spreading outward, touching Alara, surrounding them both. The labyrinth shook violently, walls cracking, shadows screaming as they resisted. Celine's figure twisted in the mirror, her eyes narrowing, lips parting in a silent scream. But the bond between Viren and Alara was stronger than her magic, stronger than the curse, stronger than the night itself. Viren placed his hand over Alara's heart, and she felt the pulse of his strength, of his courage, of the wolf and man combined. She pressed her hand over his, letting her own power, her own love, flow into the connection. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Then the shadows began to dissolve, melting into the light. The labyrinth trembled, and the mirror shattered, silver shards scattering across the floor like rain. Celine's voice faded, a whisper of wind through the ruins. Veyran sank to his knees, breathing heavily, the wolf within him, quiet at last. Alara knelt beside him, hands trembling but steady on his shoulders. He looked at her, golden eyes soft now, human, and wolf at peace together. You did it, he whispered, awe in his voice. We did it. Alara smiled faintly, tears in her eyes. We faced it together. That's what mattered. The labyrinth seemed to sigh, walls settling, shadows gone. Moonlight spilled through the broken ceiling, touching the stone with silver. The cursed kingdom, though still broken, felt lighter, as if the weight of centuries had lifted, even just a little. Viren stood slowly, offering his hand to her. She took it without hesitation, feeling the warmth of his strength and the trust they had built. The curse, is it truly gone? She asked softly. Veyran looked around, cautious but hopeful. The worst of it? Yes, the Queen's hold is broken. But some shadows will always remain. They are part of the world, part of me, part of what we faced, and we will face them together, always. Alara nodded, a smile tugging at her lips. Then we begin again. Not just surviving, but living. Together. They walked to the edge of the tower, looking out over the kingdom below. The sun was beginning to rise, pale gold spilling across the ruins. The forest surrounding the kingdom was misty but alive with light and sound, birds stirring, leaves rustling. The world felt renewed, as though dawn itself had been waiting for this moment. Veyran turned to her, golden eyes reflecting the sunrise. You changed everything. he said softly. Your courage, your trust, your heart. I do not know if I could have survived without it. Alara blushed faintly, a smile touching her lips, and I would not have faced it without you. You taught me what it means to trust, to fight, to hope. For a long moment they stood together, silent but connected, bound not only by the trials they had faced but by the deep, unspoken bond that had grown between them. The ruins around them were still, peaceful now, but the echoes of the past lingered faintly, whispers of lessons learned and darkness overcome. Aron lowered his head slightly, brushing a hand against hers. The wolf within me, it will always be a part of me, but now it is not a curse. It is strength, because I am not alone. I have you. Alara pressed her hand to his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. And I have you. Always. Ah, me. The first full rays of sunlight broke over the horizon, casting gold and warmth across the ruined kingdom. The shadows that had haunted them for centuries were gone, scattered by the light and by the courage of two hearts united. Aron lifted his head, eyes reflecting both the wolf's wildness and the man's humanity. The morning is ours, he whispered, voice soft yet filled with promise. But the night will always remember us. Alara smiled, the weight of fear and shadow finally lifting from her shoulders. Then let it remember us well, she said. Hand in hand they walked from the tower, stepping into the dawn, into a world that was no longer only darkness and shadow, but light, hope, and the promise of everything yet to come. The forest stretched before them, alive with possibility, and the ruins behind them whispered tales of courage, trust, and love that could not be broken, even by centuries of darkness. Together they had faced the night, together they had found dawn, and together they would face whatever came next.